1 point for each one we get right. Me versus Graydon versus you versus Bryce from Tampa versus a poor surgeon who had to fix this broken boy
Thanks, Dr. Corvus.
versus
Hector from Watertown, Wisconsin.
versus Dignan versus
Pete from Hanson, Massachusetts.
versus Hamza from Redlands, California versus Jackson from Detroit versus Sophie from Westfield, Massachusetts versus
Goth in St. Cloud, Minnesota.
versus Hivemind versus NFR podcast versus
L from Boulder, Colorado.
versus Ant versus Lou versus Quadeca versus
Supreme Joey from Bakersfield, California.
versus Aaron from Nephi, Utah versus DJ Grant from Columbus, Ohio versus
Ray from Shepherd, Texas.
versus Eden versus
Tillman in Mississippi.
versus
Kevin in West Palm Beach, Florida.
versus
Hendrick in Berlin.
versus
Eve from Adelaide, Australia.
versus
Aaron from Strongsville, Ohio.
versus
Quinn in Middleton, Wisconsin.
versus B Dizzle versus
Brock in Coachella, California.
versus
Connor from Bridgend, Wales.
versus
Mikey from Orlando, Florida.
versus
All of you.
that kind of covers everybody. If you've been waiting to hear your name, like from Patreon, you know, that's kind of everybody. So
Yeah.
that's all of you. Versus
Peyton in Knoxville, Tennessee.
versus Brad versus
Bryce Daniels from Malibu.
versus
Chaz in Portland, Oregon.
versus
Ryan Philippi, the actor.
not the swimmer
That's Ryan Lochte.
versus
Logan from Melbourne, Florida.
versus
Aaron Judge in New York.
versus Jacob from Fresno versus Kenny versus
Denzel in Chattanooga.
versus
Robert from Castle Rock, Colorado.
versus Ken Jennings versus Theodore in Olympia, Washington